Now, we all remember this face. The face with the beautiful bright smile and deep dimples. The face of Laci Peterson, who went missing on December 24th, 2002. Her husband, Scott Peterson, would ultimately be charged with the unaliving of her and their unborn child, Connor, and would head to the row. But is he really innocent? Did he do it? Let's open the shutters, draw the curtains, and put this VHS tape on rewind as we travel back to 2002 on this episode of Behind the Blinds. We strive to present these stories with the utmost respect to the victims and their families. Our content is based on information found on the public domain and is used for entertainment purposes only. For more information about our disclaimer, head on down to the description box below. And remember, while you're down there, go ahead and leave me a comment, and subscribe if you already haven't. Now, Scott Peterson's case was recently picked up by the Innocence Project. And we know that for the Innocence Project to pick up a case, they must have some strong evidence or strong belief that you are innocent, and is willing to take the time to dig into the facts of this case. So I think that makes us all wonder, is Scott Peterson really innocent? Let's dig into the case from past to present and see if we can see what they see and how they see it, because I got questions. Now, we're going to touch on his innocence, but first, let's rewind all the way back to 2002. So I want you all to get your tea or your whiskey, whatever you prefer to sip on, and get comfortable, because this is going to be a long one. On December 24, 2002, Laci Peterson was reported missing when her husband, Scott Peterson, returned home and she was not there. Before calling her family, he canvassed the area asking neighbors if they had seen her. And many had stated, yeah, they saw her walking their dog earlier this morning. Now, some said around between 10:15 and 10:45. Now, during that time, Scott said that he was gone fishing at the marina. Around 6 p.m., after Scott searched around, took a shower and things like that, he decided to call Laci's parents and say, call her from Laci, I haven't seen her. And that's when the decision was made to report her missing. Scott told the police that he was out fishing for sturgeon earlier that day at the Berkeley Marina, which is roughly 90 miles from where Modesto. When police brought him in for questioning, they asked if he would be willing to take a polygraph test, and he replied, no, it's probably not in the best interest, but he did say no. They all stated he had a cold, calculated demeanor. Laci's mother, Sharon Rocha, initially Scott, he's too kind of a person, he wouldn't do that. But it was up until the vigil that was held for Laci and Connor that something was a little off about Scott, and she noticed it. She said he seemed distracted and was on his phone all the time and really wasn't engaged in the activities that were going on. Shortly after, this case would go nationwide, thrusting Amber Fry, Scott's mistress, into the spotlight. Amber said that Scott had told her earlier in December that he was married, but he was widowed. His wife had passed earlier that year, and this was going to be his first, Christmas without her. Amber then reached out to the authorities and started to record their conversations. Thousands of volunteers showed up to show their support in the search for Laci and Connor. And there was a reward for up to $500,000 for anyone with information. Fortunately, around April 13th, the remains of Connor would wash up on the San Francisco Bay. Next day, a badly decomposed body would wash up just a few miles away. That would be identified as Laci. Now remember, Laci was found in the Berkeley Marina. Baby Connor was found in the bay. The marina was right where Scott said he was going to go fishing. The adult body was only a torso. It was missing its extremities and the head as well. Once DNA confirmed that it was both Laci and Connor, they descended upon Scott, but they wouldn't find him. Near was found hundreds of miles away with a sum of $15,000, 4 cell phones, 2 IDs. One was his brother. He had dyed his hair, and it really looked like he was trying to make his way to Mexico on a run. A detective who was also an avid fisher stated that it didn't make sense that he would drive 90 miles just to put his boat in the water, especially when it was 40 degrees, and he had the wrong gear for the Bay Area, the water. It was a little rough. He questioned Scott about the lures or the fishing equipment and the bait. He didn't even know what kind of bait he was using. Now I need to know if there's any fishermen out fished in the bay, and I'm not talking about the ice fishermen. I know crazy, the people that fish in the ice with the hole in the ice. Would you take a small boat in the San Francisco Bay in 40-degree weather to fish for sturgeon? Let me know. There was Laci's mitochondrial DNA on a pair of pliers that was found on the boat, and the dogs also picked up on her scent around the boating landing area. So if he was innocent then, why did he try to run? Why did he have this large sum of cash, IDs, and dyed his hair if he was innocent, right? Now, of course, I can see how they always try to pin it on the husband. We know that. But he's looking a little guilty. On April 21st, he was charged with the unalivings of Laci and Connor. And I personally remember that the videos of the vigil, and I remember he wasn't involved at all, you know. But you can't tell someone how to grieve when they're grieving, you know. I don't know. June 4th, 2004, the trial would begin, and he felt as though he wouldn't get a fair trial in Modesto, so it was then moved to San Mateo County. The typical motive was that Scott Peterson didn't want to be married anymore. He didn't want the family, the life. He wanted to be free so he could run away with Amber Fry and do whatever it is that he thought he was about to start doing. Now, we will note that there isn't much physical evidence and everything is pretty much circumstantial, but we all know what happened. The defense argued that cheating doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to go out here and unalive somebody, right? How was the finances? Was he nervous that, you know, if he unalived her, he, one, get the insurance, and then two, wouldn't have to give up half. He wouldn't have to give up half. As mentioned, there is no smoking pew-pew in this case towards Scott Peterson. No smoking pew-pew, right? Pew-pew. We don't have it. We don't have it. All we have was speculation and the fact that the remains washed up in the geographical area of where he had been fishing in the bay. After 5 months of trial, Scott Peterson was found guilty on November 12, 2004. 1 month later, he would be sentenced to the row. And I'm not talking about the record label. On August 24, 2020, his sentence was overturned and it was reduced to life plus 15 years for the unaliving of baby Connor. On January 18, 2024, the Innocence Project picked up the case, stating that his constitutional rights were violated during the original trial. There's also evidence that wasn't allowed during the first trial that they now want to review. Now let's talk about, is Scott innocent? Now I hope y'all refill y'all glasses. I'm going to give y'all a second to pause the video because we got more to get into. There's a lot more. Now we're about to touch on some of the facts that may prove him innocent. And I'm going to tell you something. I have scoured the internet and looked through hours of videos and read whatever I could. And these are some notable things that I was able to pick out. The dog that picked up the scent down on the landing apparently was incorrect 75% of the time. Now that's a big thing. They also tried replicating the weight of someone being on that boat in the water and trying to flip something heavy off the side. And every time they did that, the boat capsized. It flipped upside down, inside out. They even allowed the jury to take a look inside the boat, and they got in it and they tried to rock it. But of course it was on land. So, you know, that test was useless. Scott specifically said he picked that body of water because it was shallow. And, you know, if anything happened, maybe he had a better chance of swimming to shore, or I don't know, do sturgeon swim in shallow water? The defense also came up with the fact that his alibi came out pretty early. He was fishing near the Marina Bay. So if someone did have Laci and Connor and wanted to pin this on the husband, where would they dump her? Where would they dump them? Ding, ding, ding. Ding, ding, ding. Right? Okay, so at this point, I'm like, I'm invested, right? In all my research, I was finding things new. So it turns out that baby Connor was found with twine wrapped around his neck, as well as a piece of black tape pinning his ear down. Now, I know I was a little younger back then, so I didn't, read all the transcripts and go through everything, but I would think that that was a big piece of the puzzle, because that would mean that he was in this world. At some point, he was here. You know, he didn't succumb inside the womb. He had came out. So my question would be, did they test, to see if he had taken a breath? If, there was, is that a test? Is that something that they can do? Also, between 1999 and 2003, there were 7 other pregnant women that went missing in this 80-mile radius from Sacramento, 3 in Modesto, 1 in Vallejo, 1 near San Fran, and 1 near Pleasanton, California. Evelyn Hernandez disappeared within 6 months of Laci. She was also 8 months pregnant, and both of their remains would wash up in the San Francisco Bay. Now that's a little coincidental. 7 women, 2 within 6 months apart, both washing up in the San Francisco Bay. But then that makes you say, did Scott notice as well? And did that make it, an easy target because he felt like he may be able to get off with it, right? Miss Hernandez's baby was never found. So what happened here? Think about the condition that baby Connor was found in, and then Miss Hernandez's child was never recovered. So what happened to the baby? And where is the baby? So that kind of tied into the satanic theory. Apparently there are bad areas in Modesto. As we all know, there's bad areas everywhere, and also some crazed people. So about a mile from where Laci and Scott live is the airport district. Now this place it's a little rundown. You could tell that there are definitely some substances happen that are not legally pharmaceutical. I hope y'all picking up what I'm putting down. So this brings in a question. Did the authorities mess up by putting their sights on Scott and totally ignoring everything else? Because once they zero in, it's zeroed. And they get tunnel vision and nothing else will make sense. They don't even care about investigating anything else. So let's dig into some more. And yes, there is more. On December 24th, 2002, Lourdes Savina, a store owner, said that a car was parked outside her business for about 30 minutes. And there were 2 men in the car and they were watching her and they looked like trouble. She said she stepped out to do something and she noticed one of the guys get out the car to come into her store. So at that point, she ran to the back and called the authorities. She said she didn't want to give them a chance to grab her. She was only questioned by Scott's attorney and never questioned by the police, which is weird, right? Because she too was 8 months pregnant and actually gave birth on the due date of what would have been Laci's due date. So this is crazy. Like my mind is like blown at this point because I'm like, okay, I thought I knew, I thought I had it in the bag. He was guilty. He did that. I thought it was like the OJ thing. We know OJ did it. Now I'm just, let's go into it. So as mentioned above, several witnesses stated that they saw Laci walking the dog Mackenzie. And according to her mom, this was something that she did almost every day, even though she was 8 months pregnant. She will walk her path, right? And though there are other pregnant women in the area, you would think that if people would see the same woman walking, that eventually they would start to recognize who they are. One witness even states that he saw her walking. She was wearing black leggings and a white blouse, and the cops never even came to question him. Now, Kevin Service, the woman who placed Mackenzie in the backyard, states that she did that around 10:18. So she put the picture that Laci was already missing around 10:18 a.m. because she had ran some errands, and based on the timestamp of her receipt, that it would have occurred around 10:18 a.m. So this is what the prosecution was going by when it came to the timestamp of when Laci went missing, that she would have had to be missing before 10:18 when Karen went over there and saw Mackenzie with his leash on and her putting him back in the backyard. But other neighbors nearby state that Mackenzie would often roam out of the backyard and just sit and chill out on the front lawn, and it was typical for him to do. So that makes me question if Laci ran back in the house to grab something. Did she just have him sit there for a second until she came back? So let's see. The mailman noticed between 10:35 and 10:50 when he went to drop the mail, and of course that's all time stamped when he drops mail at locations, that the back gate was now open and Mackenzie wasn't barking. Now, I'm sure mailmen know their locations and where they got to be on alert for the people who have, a dog or something. So you get to know, I'm sure, your route and things like that. And he said he noticed that Mackenzie wasn't barking. So if Mackenzie would have been in that backyard between 10:35 and 10:50, the mailman would have heard him barking. and the gate was open. So did Laci grab him out of the backyard and then proceed on the walk, which many witnesses put her? It is also good to note that there is really no physical evidence or forensic evidence that says something transpired in the house, in the car, on the boat. There's really nothing tying any of those locations to unaliving. Now, around 11:40 a.m., Diane Jackson sees a burglary taking place. And she sees this van parked outside one of their neighbors' home, which was called the Medina House, which was right across the street from Laci's house. The police saw that crime, and when he brought the two of the three burglars in, one of the guy's first words were, "We had nothing to do with that missing pregnant lady." So we'll just note that as well. The burglar confessed to the burglary, but states that it happened on the 26th and not the 24th. Now, we all know that by the 26th, Laci and Scott's home was flooded with media, police, family coming in and out. So I can't see them committing that crime, as someone mentioned in one of the videos I watched. Can't see them committing that crime when activity was there. And there was one reporter who spoke and said, "I was there at 5 a.m. and I saw nothing." So if Diane saw the burglary occurring around 11:40, that's early. There would have been media. People would have saw that happening on the 26th. So it had to have been the 24th. A lieutenant at a correction facility recalls a phone call one of the inmates had, and those calls are monitored, where the brother of one of the burglars was talking about Laci and how she had approached them during the burglary, and they basically threatened her, like, "Keep your mouth shut." And the guy that was in the facility said, "Hey, shut up. These calls could be recorded," which they were. So that lieutenant reached out to the police department and even provided them with a recorded tape of the conversation. And to your surprise, my surprise, and the jurors' probably surprise, that tape is now missing. They don't even recall ever getting it. Now, here are some more witnesses that recall seeing Laci on her walk. Diane Campo, who worked at a hospital in the back of the path that she would walk, states that around 10:45 a.m., she was out on her smoke break. And she remembers seeing the pregnant woman with the black leggings and the white shirt walking her dog. She identified the dog and Laci and was 100% positive that that's who she saw. Another witness, who also walks his dog around the same time, was used to seeing Mackenzie, the dog, and said that he wasn't really paying attention to who was walking the dog, but he remembers the black leggings and the white shirt, but he specifically remembers Mackenzie. So all these people is saying that Laci was walking her dog well after 10:18 a.m., which pretty much states that she put the pup in the backyard, but Laci then grabbed him and went for her walk. And all this would have occurred while Scott had already left the residence. He was gone. So, this is tough. So there was also another doctor, because the prosecution's doctor tried to identify the time of the unaliving based on judging the size of the bones. But another doctor who reviewed the case said that in these situations, you want to do more than one bone. And the first doctor on the prosecution only did one bone. And that put his time of unaliving on December 24th. But when this new doctor measured out the femur and two other bones, that the tibus and the hibiscus, something like that, that he placed the time on January 3rd of 2003. So that would help explain he was born, which is why he probably had the twine around his neck and the tape over his ear. He actually came into this world. So my question is, why didn't the defense this back in 2004 to argue against the prosecutor's doctor and prove that scientific proof with the medical calculations and the 1 + 1 = MC squared that they do? Had that been done, maybe the jurors would have had, more information. So I don't know, y'all. As I said, the math just ain't mathing anymore the way it used to. Did we all jump on the media train and just automatically, condemn Scott Peterson? Because I know I was one of them. He was guilty. He was guilty of sin. Did we all just not get all the facts? Was there information that was suppressed so that we can all jump to the same conclusion? I got questions. So there was no physical evidence, no forensic evidence. Everything was circumstantial. He didn't grieve the way we expected him to grieve. He was cheating. But did that make him an unaliver? Is Scott Peterson innocent? I desperately need to know your thoughts. Please comment below. I want to hear how you feel. Let me know what you think about the stuff from the innocent part. I got to hear it. I thank you all for tuning in. Please remember, be kind, always rewind, and I will catch you next time on your favorite YouTube channel, Behind the Blinds.